You ready? All right. I want to introduce our next candidate, Mr. Giovanni Piedemante. Welcome to Tallahassee, first of all, and
yes, thank you.
I hope you get a chance to take a look at the campus while you're here. It's a beautiful campus. Thank you for being here. We're honored to have you here, and honored to have you as a part of the process. We talked about how we were going to go about the process today with the questions. I get the honor of having the first question. You know, everyone's seen your bio and your CV, so they know a lot about you from what you've given us already. But by way of introduction, I would like you to take a few minutes to tell us about yourself professionally and personally, and why at this point in your career you're interested in becoming the president of Florida State University, and what interests you most about the university and the position.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much. It's a true privilege for me to be invited to this incredible institution. To me, this is, and the presidency in general, is the completion of a cycle, completion of a trajectory, which started with me being a physician. I think I did pretty well. I'm on the top doctor list virtually everywhere I've worked. Then I decided to become an investigator, a researcher. I've been funded, and still I am funded by NIH for the past 20 years. And then I decided to be an administrator, and as an administrator, I was one of the longest-serving chairs in pediatrics in the country with 12 years of service. Then I became president and CEO of hospitals in what I consider one of the, not only myself, but Cleveland Clinic is considered is the second-ranking hospital in the world. And then basically I accepted the offer, wonderful opportunity at Tulane to run their entire research enterprise, which fulfilled one of my dreams, because being a physician, I've always worked with engineers, with physicists, with lawyers, with people from different backgrounds, and I profoundly believe in convergence and the ability of people coming together to address issues that are too complex to be addressed by a single specialty. So this will be basically the completion of that cycle, and I think that it's important when you start a trajectory to complete. But then, if I may, there was something that happened, and this is actually true. I can prove it to you, although it seems strange. But I found out that I was on the finalist list, not from the press, but from somebody else. Somebody who had never met for decades. And literally minutes after the announcement came out, I received this message that says, saw in the local news that you are a finalist for the FSU president. In 1996, 25 years ago, you were my premature son, Zach, pediatric pulmonologist in Miami. Zach graduated from FSU in 2019 in digital media production. I just remember what a caring and wonderful doctor you were, just wishing you the best of luck. And you know something? Gave me the entire explanation right there. My patients, a lot of, by the way, when I was in Miami, I had a lot of people traveling from northern Florida to come to see me. They're now graduating. They're graduating, and many of them probably from FSU. And I feel that this is a perfect completion of a cycle of work, very hard work, commitment, passion, and so that's interesting in FSU. I've always looked for places with great potential. A friend of mine actually makes fun of me because he knows that I was invited by a very important university some time ago, and I refused to go to interview because I said, "You're perfect, you don't need me." I like places that I can take from good to great. And that's exactly what I did in Miami. Miami didn't have a program in pulmonology when I arrived, and today has a wonderful program. I did it certainly in West Virginia, where I pretty much built the Department of Pediatrics, and I got a call a few weeks back by the leader of their advancement committee, and they said, "Look, you're not going to believe this, but West Virginia is going to have a children's hospital, and a lot of it is because of your work." I definitely did it at Cleveland Clinic, which is number two on U.S. News and World Report, but my service line was one of those that were considered basically on the side. Today is the 5th largest service line in the Cleveland Clinic system. And Tulane, 2020, was the number 1 research year in history for Tulane. In 180 years, 84 years of history, we got the largest amount of federal money, total funding, and so forth. So I think that I have worked a lot in different environments, in different situations, in small institutions, in huge institutions, in rural institutions, in state institutions, in private institutions. I think I've always been fairly successful, otherwise I will not be here today, I think. And I think I'm ready to become the president of a great university that I can take, like my friend Jim Collins wrote famously, from a good university to a great university. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Our next question is from Governor Szilagyi.
Welcome, and thank you for being here. So FSU has recently joined the rankings of one of the top 20 public universities, according to U.S. News and World Report. Mm-hmm. And we aspire to do even greater things, to go from good to great, and going from good to great would be a top 10 type of ranking. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts as to what you think are the major obstacles in achieving that goal, and what experience you have in addressing those type of challenges. If you have a plan, what that plan would be, and how you would expect to implement it, and the time frame that you think it would take realistically to be able to move the university from this top 20 to a top 10.
Thank you for the question. It's a great question. Well, the first thing that has to be very clear, in my personal opinion, is another great book that I recommend to a lot of people. It's called What Got You Here Is Not Going to Take You There. It's a wonderful book, and that tells you that the type of skills that you need to get in the top 20 is not the same set of skills that is going to take you in the top 10. Because there are, the game becomes much, much harder. You are on the ring with a bunch of Cassius Clays or Muhammad Ali's. You have only superweights there, with infrastructures that are in the billions, with incredible tradition and so on and so forth. So you have to play their game. What I've learned working in several top institutions is what makes the difference is culture. If you work in one of those institutions, you don't need to motivate people. They know that the goal is to get the bar higher and higher and higher. And that is what makes them very special. If you go to the Cleveland Clinic, you're going to see people that literally at 6 o'clock in the morning wake up, and the first thing that they think is what they're going to do next to get that place higher and higher. So I think that fundamentally is to establish a culture of relentless improvement and excellence that makes the difference and gets you there. You need, I think we all agree, if you want to get there, there is only one way, and this is to increase research. The next 5 to 10 years are going to give an absolutely unique opportunity. But it's a train that is going to probably pass only once. There is a massive amount of money that is going to be invested in research for a reason that this country never experienced before. I can show you all the graphs, and I assume that you know them, but all the projections suggest that China is going to catch up for the first time in history within the next decade. So the United States, in order to maintain the dominance that has had for decades in the world of research and development, is going to have to basically put the foot on the gas. And for that, I spend a substantial time in Washington. I have lots of connection there. I suspect there is going to be a doubling or tripling of the NIH budget. There is already announced a doubling of the NSF budget. There is the creation of projects and programs that many people don't even know about. For example, HARPA. HARPA is the health version of DARPA. Many people don't realize HARPA is going to have its own budget. And the initial budget is $1 billion in the first year that goes to $4 billion in the second year and keeps growing. completely independent with a separate director and totally independent in funding by NIH. So it's a unique opportunity. The only way to catch that opportunity is simply to develop research, increase the number of applications, increase the number of grants, put people together to work in groups to get the large center grants, and also to pick and choose in which areas you want to focus your effort. And let me tell you where the money is going to go. Medicine, healthcare, healthcare inequalities, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, hybrid clouds. So it's all at the intersection between medicine and biomedical sciences and engineering and advanced computers and so forth. I spent years to become an expert in each one of those areas. And that's where the money is going to go. And by the way, that is going to take to the top 10. To get into the AAU is very important to understand. And by the way, when I was in Cleveland, my boss was, my academic boss was the president of Case Western, Bob Schneider, that is actually, as of 2 months ago, is the new president of the AAU. When you play into the AAU, you understand that not all research is the same. Just pay attention to what happened in 2011, I think. Nebraska was kicked out of the AAU. Nebraska has more research money than many members of the AAU, but it's in agriculture. AAU doesn't care about agriculture, and they're not going to say it particularly loud. AAU cares about medicine, biomedical sciences, engineering, computer sciences. AAU, by the way, is very closely connected to 3 of the top physicists and engineering labs in the country, like the Sandia, for example. And that's basically what you are to work with. And I think in terms of timeline, I do believe that Florida State University has the potential to at least become the top academic institution in the state of Florida. I think the UF is definitely within reach. I definitely think that with a serious program of investment led by an expert, a series of experts, people that know about this kind of environment can get in the top 10. I think that can be done in about 5 years. I think to get into AAU is going to take a little bit longer because it's a very unique circle. And I close with this, look at what happened yesterday. Yesterday, the AAU inducted the 66th member, Tufts University. Happens to be run by a wonderful president. His name is Tony Monaco. No, that's the last name. And Tony did exactly that. Tony knew that Tufts is not huge. Tufts has great schools, but look where he put his money and his time over the past, he has been president for now less than 10 years, but he immediately started working on the School of Medicine, immediately started working on the School of Engineering. He connected as much as possible with MIT. In fact, Tufts has a very strong connection with MIT. Result is, guess what, that Tufts is in. Utah. Which programs are excellent at Utah? School of Medicine, Engineering, and so on and so forth. So I think we know quite well what has to be done. It's not going to be easy, but I think it is doable.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a follow-up question? Anyone? Our next question comes from Dr. Frau.
Hello. As you know, fundraising is an important aspect of the president position and will play a critical role in the further development of the university. What experience have you had in working with individual donors, foundations, or corporations, which you've spoke to some already? In addition, building the endowment is of a particular interest and will be key to the institution's success. Can you please share your experience in building and managing an endowment?
Well, let me summarize. I love to raise money. And I've always done it, even in places that frankly were not very easy to. And my personal style and my personal attitude has always been, I almost always add teams of great fundraisers with me. I mean, when I was at the Cleveland Clinic, just my service line, I had probably 10 or 15 working directly with me. But I always thought, and I still do, that if you really want to fundraise effectively and create a long-term donation, sustainable, you need to go and talk to people yourself. And that was particularly my strategy, for example, when I was at West Virginia University. You know, West Virginia is a very poor state. But then I realized a lot of people have incredible amount of money coming from gas and oil. A lot of them never went to school, by the way. So what I did, believe it or not, I basically got on my car and I went to visit them one by one. And I give you an example. One day I go to visit this gentleman who had made a fortune out of gas. And you know, he never went to school. He grew up into one of those things that are called coal houses, were huge houses where they were amassing literally dozens and dozens of people to sleep together and then go work in the mine the next day. Oh, by the way, he bought that coal house and now it's his estate where he lives. And you know, he always will give me a tour of his properties. And during one of these tours, frankly, not the most exciting way to spend your afternoon, but he said, listen, one of my grandchildren got diagnosed with diabetes. Did you hear anything about this? I said, well, I'm a doctor, you know. Well, make a long story short because I don't have time, but that was the beginning of a donation that created at the time and now is thriving, the Diabetes Center of West Virginia. So I truly believe that you cannot send your people just to say, give me the money. I believe that you have to establish relationships. You have to actually get on the phone. You have to talk to these people. You have to basically say what is in for you, but not in financial terms, because these people have a lot of money, but basically they want recognition. They want to make sure that they're doing something important for their community. And I feel that that kind of personal relationship, I mean, I have some of my donors in Cleveland that still call me on a regular basis. And you know, and some of them actually sometimes want to give me money, frankly. And I think that is the fundamental element of creating not only a single donation, but a series of donations over time. And you have to explain to them what you are investing the money for. They're not going to understand molecular biology, but they will understand what you are trying to get in terms of improving the life of human beings and their community. And frankly, they become my friends, and frankly, are some of the best relationships I've had in my career. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mr. Irossi.
Thanks for being here, Doctor, and your interest in Florida State. We've talked over and over again about FSU's aspirational goals of reaching the AAU and top 10 for public university status. So my question is two parts. One is, in your experience, what are the 3 or 4 challenges that we have impacting recruiting and retaining exceptional students, and how have you addressed those in your former institutions? And then the second part of that question, which you've touched on some, and I think your information about the grant process and the amount of money that's coming is very informative, but can you comment on your experience specifically working with federal agencies such as NIH and NSF and NAE and the USDA and maybe others on obtaining research dollars?
Yeah, challenges, I think that, you know, there is a huge market out there. I mean, the new generations are amazing to me. They are our future, and they look into the future. And they think very differently from the way we think. For example, I give you an example. I have 6 kids. And if you go from the oldest to the youngest, you see a very dramatic switch between non-digitally native to totally digitally native. So my youngest daughter, I don't think she has really read any book on paper. She reads one a day on her iPad. I think that you have to be receptive of that. They think differently. And I think that one of the best way to attract the best students is to create an environment that reflects their beliefs, that reflects their world, a world in which you're younger than me, but I suspect you still watch TV. They don't watch TV. They watch YouTube. And first of all, I have an advantage that I have them see the way they live. But I think that is very important. The school of the future is going to be very different from the current school. The best schools are already working on that. For example, stupid me, many years ago, I studied anatomy on a book. My former institution, Case Western Research University, which is the academic partner of the Cleveland Clinic, you learn anatomy using a special system patented by Microsoft called Hologram, which basically allows you, it's just virtual reality. So you put the goggles on, and you actually can touch the heart, can move it from the way, can go and see where the diaphragm is. That is the future. And when you develop those kind of programs, guys say, shouldn't say, wow, this is cool. They don't say it's good, it's cool. And I think that is the key of the future. New curricula. For example, Case Western, the program at Cleveland Clinic is 5 years. One of the years has to be in research. I had some of those people in my lab. One of them gets into my office, and she wanted the position in my lab, and we were talking about my research, and she said, well, wait a second, a few years ago you wrote exactly the opposite. I said, I wrote every one of my papers. I guarantee you, I went to check. She was right. She has read every single one of 160 peer-reviewed papers, and she knew it by heart. These are the people that you want. To get them, you need to understand the way they think, and you need to give them the resources to thrive in an environment and in a world that is changing at a speed that we have never experienced. And so I think that is I hope I addressed, is one of the challenges. There's many others. I think DI is going to be another one. Of course, huge population of students that you have here. There must be a very strong attention to diversity, to inclusion, to equality. They feel very strongly about all those things. You need a president that can talk face-to-face with them and that understands what really makes them happy, what makes them upset, what makes their heart sing. And I think that is in general basically the way I would address your first question. Your second question, it's like a country club. If you do research for 20, 30 years, you end up knowing the president of the NIH, the vice president of the NIH. By the way, as the vice president and institutional official of Tulane University, I have to meet with them almost on a regular basis. Actually, not only them. Lately, I spend a lot of time with the FBI because one of the big problems that anybody doing research is going to have is, as you know, endless frontier and so on and so forth. You learn continuously from the leaders. For example, we have a software right now at Tulane, I just bought it, that is able to detect any company that wants to do business with us but has ties with the Republic of China. You need to know all those complexities. AAU is the ultimate country club. But I tell you something, there is a reason why people want to get here into AAU. And is that the only thing that matters is the quality and the quantity of your research. All the rest doesn't matter. You can have the President of the United States as your president. They could not care less. They only care about your research expenditure. Has to be federal, as you know probably. Otherwise, basically, you don't get in. And so it is a very strict, regulated by strict rules, but there are rules that are the same for everybody, from Harvard all the way down to Santa Cruz. And I think that the important thing is that you know those people. As you probably know, the VPRs of all the major universities meet on a regular basis. We know each other. We learn from each other continuously. But you need to be in the business of doing research. I don't think that you will get as the leader of the Seminoles football team somebody who has been playing tennis until the day before. It takes 20, 30 years of being in the business. The same way, you're a very successful CEO in selling, in wholesales, and so on and so forth. Of course, if you want to do that business, you need to go to him. I have been in research, academic research, pretty much since I could almost speak. and you know, it just takes time. And again, you build the relationships. Look what happened. I mean, I was the position of chair of pediatrics at the Cleveland Clinic College of Medicine that is part of Case Western. I'm not going to get into the details to bore you, but reports directly to the president of Case Western. The president was Barb Snyder. And guess what happens? I mean, you close your eyes and the next day she is in charge of the AAU. These things happen continuously. I think that they have developed a reputation. A reputation also goes through honesty. I've never been, not even thought of any unusual or unfit practices of research. All my papers are right there. They can go check them and so on and so forth. And so basically it's something that you do with a lot of work, and it takes time. Did I address you?
Is there any follow-up to this, to that question?
Well, Nick really just wants to know if you can cook Italian food. He's trying to find some good Italian food.
Absolutely not. You know, you need to diversify. So you cannot be good at everything. So I had my mother train my wife. And my wife, she is brutal. She, you know, I don't invite any more people at home because if they come one time, then they drive me crazy for the next 3 years because they want to come back. So
that's a question Nick really wanted to ask.
All right. Well, you know, I take care. I take care of the
Mr.
wines.
Chairman, with a vowel at the end of his name.
Say that again.
I was saying it's nice, Mr. Chairman, to have a candidate with a vowel at the end of his name.
So what time's dinner? Is that the question?
I always tell people that the most important thing about hiring me is to hire my wife. She's a pediatrician. She's Hispanic. She cooks like nobody else. She's raised the 6 kids, and you know, it's
Maybe
my
we should be
backbone.
talking
It's my backbone.
Thank you for that answer. I do have one. Am I on? I do have a sort of a follow-up question to that. You talked about the changes in education and in students and faculty and all that goes with that, with the, I assume, different ways using technology for learning. Take just a minute, if you would, a few minutes if you want, but what do you see as the trends in higher education, both in the way you teach, the way you learn, and as well as obstacles and opportunities. You know, as we exit the pandemic, the world has changed. It's changed forever. It continues to change, and it's changing at a faster pace than ever. So as a scientist and a doctor and a researcher, what do you see? What's out
Well, what I see, the obvious is that there was this Copernican revolution of remote learning. And Bob, I have to tell you the truth, I don't think was just a fluke. I think it's here to stay. It's exactly for the same technological evolution of our new generations. And so I think that most of the systems are going to become hybrid systems because there is no doubt that there is a lot of value. Of course, people have to get together, have to you know, that is an incredibly important. I mean, Tulane and President Fitz was basically very clearly kept that as the North Star going through the COVID crisis. But there are advantages in remote learning, particularly in terms of the population, immense, endless population that you can reach. For example, one of the things that big institutions have to seriously consider in the current environment, in the current business environment, you're a business person, you understand that, you have to be global. Look at all the institutions. I mean, particularly the AU institutions, they almost all, actually all, if I may miss one or two, but all of them have operations outside of the United States. Not only because you need a global market, but also because you need global talent. And especially moving into an unprecedented phase for the history of the United States, which is for the very first time. We do know that we have a superpower that just increased the investment to 12% of GDP for research and development, that is going at the speed of light, that has very clearly stated that they want to basically overtake America by the end of the decade. We need the best of the best of the best. And we need to train them, not looking at where the puck is now. We need to look at where the puck is going to be 10 years from now. And the puck is going to be in high technologies. It's going to be in basically an unprecedented phase of human history in which basically the computer chips are very rapidly going much faster than our brain. Okay, to the point that Elon Musk has this idea to stick a chip of data in your brain, because we go at the speed of human evolution, which is unfortunately goes by centuries and millennia, the evolution Darwinian, and instead the chips go at the Moore speed, which is double every 2 years. And so it's going to be a completely different world. I think we need to prepare our kids to that world, because it's not going to be the same. Nothing is going to be the same. I tell you something that happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I'm a pulmonologist, and I was incredibly proud of my craft. A company calls me and say, we would like to have you as a consultant because, and initially they didn't want to tell me what it was about because it was not patented, so but now basically I can talk about it. Well, to make a long story short, they show me a robot doing bronchoscopies. And then they asked me, how is it? Well, first of all, I said, probably it's a she, but, she's really damn good. I would have never thought within my lifetime to see a robot doing what it took me 20 years to do. So I think that the future has different rules, and you have to always think where the puck is going to be, not where it is right now, because the world is not going to be the same 10 years from now. Did I?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Of course, I'm very complex. We could stay here for literally 10 hours, but I don't have the time.
Yeah, but thank you for the answer. That answered my question. Thanks for that. Our next question is from Mr. Pantene.
Dr. Piedmonte, welcome to Florida State.
I love your accent, by the way.
The university wants to become a member of your country club, AAU, just like Tulane. What is your experience working with your colleagues at AAU? What plan will you implement to accomplish FSU goals of being a member? And what areas do you see that you need to most focus on?
Very good question, and parts of this I addressed before. I have enormous admiration for the AAU because, again, the rules are the same for everybody. And it doesn't matter where you come, who you are, what are your connections, they all care about hard data. And it's all about data, and they look at the R&D, federal R&D. They have their own formulas, but they look very specifically to what you're able to bring in as federal money for research. The people that I sit with are all, with absolutely no exception, are world-class scientists. There are several people that are into the National Academy of Science. There are several people that have been nominated, like me, several times to the National Academy of Science. But they're all people, my God, that are giants. And you need to speak their language. And their language is the language of research. It is something that they're never going to say, but it is true that not all research is the same. They look at very specific areas of research. And the research that makes a difference, I'm just telling you this, just look at the members, are all massive operations of medicine. And also, it's connected because either we like it or we don't like it. The big bucks in research go to biomedical. It's the NIH. It's the $55 billion of NIH that make the difference there. And by the way, among those members, Johns Hopkins last year got $2 billion in NIH money. Okay, just to, and but they look also what you're doing. For example, Tulane has become an absolute leader, international leader in infectious diseases, emerging infectious diseases. Many of the new vaccines are being tested in this moment at Tulane. That is very important because that is a strategic area that is critical for our country and is critical for AAU. As I mentioned before, nobody said it very loudly, but why Nebraska got kicked out some time ago? Nebraska has a lot of research. And by the way, they changed since. They said that they didn't care, but obviously they do care because they look where they invested. They have a lot of agricultural money, but that is not what makes the difference. Look at the names: Harvard, MIT, Johns Hopkins, and on and on and on and on. They have things in common, and this an absolute predominance, and they are giants of biomedical and engineering and advanced computer operations, and on and on. And that's all we talk about. Frankly, I'm not saying that all the other things are not important.
Yeah, I got you.
Sorry, I'm not important. Liberal arts are spectacularly important. FSU is very important. Is very strong in liberal arts. It's just not going to get you into AAU. Is the sad. As a matter of fact, I will say that one of the things we learned from the COVID crisis is that the institutions that had a very strong technological core did extremely well. Believe it or not, most of the AAU institutions actually increased their research during the COVID crisis. And it's because they were investing. I mean, we submitted $130 million in COVID research, and we got back already $32, $33 million, just to give you the idea. Instead, FSU, I look at the numbers, there was actually a decline in applications, and there was a decline in grant funded. So it's a strategy that you need to basically craft in order to basically get into the club. But the rules are the same for everybody, and are the rules of research, of academic research, of scholar achievement.
Thank you.
Did I answer that? So excuse me, the strategy, you have to do more research, you have to invest in the right, because you cannot do everything perfect. So biomedical is the first pod when I will put investments. You have a young school of medicine, very promising, but there is a lot of work to be done. And it's a little bit concerning the decline of funding over the past couple of years. The second bucket, in my opinion, is what you have to do good to be good in the future. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, hybrid clouds, everything that has to do with the world that is shaping under our eyes. And frankly, in an area like this, coastal resilience. Louisiana in this moment is losing literally centimeters of land on a monthly basis. And that is not only New Orleans. It's Miami, it's New York, it's Copenhagen, is Venice. All those places are going to disappear if there is a continuing of this process, because they're all coastal, right? So coastal resilience, Tallahassee is in a perfect, the Panhandle is in a perfect geographical area to basically, and by the way, those are grants that can go into the $50, $60, $70 million. Unfortunately, and I don't think it's right, but unfortunately, liberal arts and sciences, when they get a $60,000 grant, is a big celebration. And I tell them, your research is as important as the top or biomedical, but it's not going to get you into AAU.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Any other questions in that regard?
Hey, Chairman, I have a question.
Yes. Yes. Recognize.
Obviously, I'm very interested in medicine for many years and appreciate your work, and I know about the Cleveland Clinic. It's probably the finest institution, one of them in the world, certainly top 5, and so I appreciate all your efforts. How would you go about building or strengthening our College of Medicine? I mean, what are just maybe, that's a complicated question, but what are some just basic building blocks in your opinion?
I don't know enough about the way it's structured as we speak, so I have to give you general answers. one thing I want to tell you, you're absolutely right. The Cleveland Clinic is today, with Mayo Clinic, the best medical institution in the world. In the world, because one of the things they did, there is, for example, I spent a lot of time when I was working there, I spent a lot of time in Abu Dhabi, because we have a hospital in Abu Dhabi. Next year is going to open Cleveland Clinic London. There is Cleveland Clinic in Canada. There is Cleveland Clinic in 20 different countries. But 30 years ago was just a small hospital in Cleveland, Ohio, which, by the way, is not exactly the best place to spend your life. In fact, the population continues to shrink. So what did they do? They established a culture of excellence. At a certain point, they decided to have their own school of medicine, but they came up with a new concept. They came up with a concept, well, they are lucky. They got a guy that basically gave them the money to endow all the students there. So if you are selected, you actually don't pay a dime. That is fundraising. But the effect is devastating because there are 3,000 of the best kids in the country that apply for 32 positions a year. And each one is 10 times smarter than me. Because, you know, they're not going to pay, among other things. The curriculum is different. It's 10 years, is 5 years. 1 year has to be devoted to research with the understanding that you cannot be anymore a physician just putting your stethoscope here. You need to understand the science. A couple of years ago, they opened the new campus that is a combination of Case Western and medical school and Cleveland Clinic. If you go into that campus, in my opinion, is the future of medicine because you have the medical school and you have the school for PAs and you have the nursing school and you have all the components. Is the understanding that the new medicine is a team game. It's no longer playing tennis, it's like playing football. You need the wide receiver, you need the quarterback, and they make them train together from the very beginning so they do know. Because in the future, I think you're a physician, so you know this very well. Everybody's going to have to work at the top of license. So the nurse practitioners are going to be probably more important than the doctors. They're going to do much more of the work. And the nurses. And it's a team, as you know very well. I still see patients, by the way. One day every other week. I insist that it's difficult. I would not know what to do with my nurses. You know those things. So you have to shape the educational experience to what the world is going to be. The world is going to be teamwork. The world is going to be technologies. So telemedicine. When I was in West Virginia, at the time nobody was talking about it, I started the first telemedicine system for pediatrics in this country. Was out of necessity. Otherwise I would have to send my physician across there is a ridge of mountains to get to the eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. They were risking their life every time they would go there. So I created a system from Morgantown, the specialist could talk to 9 different spokes. Telemedicine is the future. Kaiser Permanente, as we speak, has more encounter by telemedicine than in person. That is the future. I continue to believe that the only way to be an effective leader is, again, what Wayne Gretzky said famously a long time ago when they asked him, how come that you are so good? He said, I don't look at the puck where it is, I think where the puck is going to go. And I think that is absolutely essential in any business. In a business where there is the most historical race to new technologies like biomedical, there is no alternative. You need to have somebody that knows what he's doing, that knows the people, that knows the craft, that knows the environment, that knows the country clubs, and that knows where to put his hands and where to put the money.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Ms. Gibbs.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon. I don't know what time it is at this point. But please tell us about your experiences working with and addressing the needs of a culturally and ethically diverse population of faculty, staff, and students. What strategies and initiatives have you put in place to engage underrepresented groups and promote diversity, equity, inclusion on campus? What challenges have you experienced along the way, and how have you encountered those or overcome those challenges?
Thank you for the question, and I have to make a very brief introduction. I consider myself a minority. I'm an immigrant, but I'm particularly because I'm married to into a Latinx family. All my kids are bilingual. My dog accepts orders only in Spanish. And basically that's, I find a little bit difficult when people tell me that they understand minorities and diversity and equality when they don't experience it on their skin. And I think that I've experienced it on my skin, on the skin of my family, so I know how complex those issues are. Frankly, I think at this point we cannot rely on trying to find strategies when we are not expert. And I think that it's absolutely essential at this point to have a DEI leader and officer in every institution, but not even that, a DEI team, to explore the different aspects, to explore the different minorities. I think that we need to start learning how to talk to people. Because in a lot of situations there is misunderstanding and there is a wall against wall. And it's very dangerous for our country. You see what is happening right now in Gaza. I actually lectured several times in Jerusalem and in Lebanon and in Jordan and so forth. I know that they cannot talk to each other. They stopped talking to each other a long time ago. If that happens in our country, we are going to turn into a Gaza. We need to basically really have an open mind, but also don't assume to understand. Use experts to explain to us how the communication has to go and what is that we are doing wrong every day. And I have DEI experts working with me that have opened my mind to things that I would have never thought. And there is one area that I've particularly spent a lot of time on, and I think is going to be even more complex of a nut to crack. And this intrinsic bias is incredibly difficult because that's the way we are wired. I went to actually specialized courses. I mean, at the Cleveland Clinic, actually, we had a team from Duke coming to actually train every single one of the executives because it's very vicious. We believe many times that we're doing the right things, but we are not. And so I think that, like in anything, we need to have people that can teach us, people from the different minorities that basically explain to us the way the other people think. And that I think if I become president somewhere, I'm going to make absolutely sure to have next to me an incredible team of people dealing with DEI and explaining to me on a day-to-day basis if I do something that is not right, but not because intentionally I don't. It's just the way my neurons got wired, and that's the way we function. So I think that there is a lot to be done in that area, and particularly intrinsic bias. The fact that basically you automatically reject anything that doesn't look and feels exactly like you, even if you are not, it's not voluntary, but is in your brain. And I think that there is a lot of good work going on right now, and I think there are a lot of people that understand better than I do. And on Tuesday, I'm going to have a podcast. I'm going to record a podcast with a guy called Scott Becker. He's very famous among executives. Basically, he has these programs for CEOs of large healthcare systems. And he wanted to interview me about issues of leadership. And one of the things that I believe about leadership is that you need to know what you don't know. And that is perhaps the most important thing. A leader that feels that he or she is absolutely omnipotent and knows everything, maybe there is only one up there that has that position, but it's not human. So you need to know how to hire the people that can complete you and listen to them and empower them, by the way. One of the most horrendous things, and another one of the topics I'm going to discuss on Tuesday, micromanagement. A micromanager cannot run a complex operation. It's just there are 24 hours in a day, and one person cannot take care of everything. So the real leader knows how to hire the right people, put them in the right places, and empower them. Keeping them accountable, but empower them. And I think the same thing has to be done with dealing with the incredible diversity and the obvious needs for increased inclusion and equality that we have, particularly in the laboratories of the future society, which are the higher education institutions. Did I answer your question?
Any challenges that you've encountered personally that you want to talk about?
The challenges, one, I told you, I mean, I realized that even if you try to do your best, and you seriously, wholeheartedly try, you still do a lot of wrong things. That you need to basically to open yourself to somebody teaching you how to interpret different cultures. I remember when I was in San Francisco, I was just a resident, we had to put on the walls, this poster was saying, please do not use the word embarrassed, because a lot of our patients were Hispanic. Embarazada in Spanish means pregnant. And we had a series of problems with people saying, are you embarrassed? And the poor lady will jump up in the air. You know, there are a lot of things. And I've lectured in 103 different countries. And I thank God every day, because going to different countries, you understand that people think in a different way. That is the challenge. The challenge is to understand different cultures and be open to them. Otherwise, you know, I have great relationships with my students, with my employees. I'm very proud to have an incredibly diverse, large office with multiple units, and is one of the most diverse in the whole university, I think. And I rejoice to be able to work with them on a daily basis. And I think, they know that I truly want to be on the same plane, to understand what they have to say. And frankly, I've had wonderful experiences. Of course, it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. It's going to get worse. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic, you know why? Because when I look at the new generations, I see a generation that has never been so colorblind, that has never been so immune from a lot of closures that our generation experienced. I mean, you know, if you talk to my kids and they basically say, what do you mean color? They're just blind to it. And that is exactly the word that I hope we're going to have. I mean, there is, you know, when we understand that we are all the kids of the same creator and are able to basically accept the diversity and the talent that comes from people that think differently from the way you think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question is from Dr. Kemps.
As you know, FSU
Just
has
as a
excellent.
reminder, we have 10 minutes.
We got 10 minutes?
10 minutes left, yes.
Yeah, but he's a physician. He should have.
Thank you, sir. As you know, we have an excellent athletics program here. And how would you describe your experience, just briefly, with working with Division I athletic programs? And then how do you deal with competing entities in terms of research and academic missions versus spending in athletic departments and that?
Well, I have two qualities that nobody else has. One is I'm an MD. I'm in the finalist. Second one, I was a professional football player. Not this football, though.
Football.
They were paying me to play soccer. And I, you know, I think it's important you understand about sport. Working at university, in the leadership at University of Miami and the West Virginia University, I was in contact with very, very large programs, and I realized how they can be the backbone Also financially. I remember one year, I think Donna Shalala was the president, and Miami didn't go to the finals, and basically we had to cut the budget for all the other sport. So I realized how important that is financially. West Virginia University, I realized that is a religion. I mean, the Mountaineers, right next to the Coliseum and to the football field, there is a huge area that is always empty, except around the time of the games when it gets flooded by 30,000 people coming from everywhere. They drive just for that. Frankly, it was a surprise to me, but I learned how deep is the impact. I think it's an essential part of education. And I think that if you raise the bar of excellence in an institution, you raise it in academic and you raise it also in the sport activities. For the rest, I'm not gonna, you're too intelligent for this. I never coached a professional football team nor a college football team. But again, I truly believe that the number one job and quality of a leader is to know what you don't know. And so I think that what really the next president should do is to be able to put together the best possible team of experts to run the athletics and continue basically an area that is essential because a lot of kids come in for that, right? So it's an essential part of frankly, when I was in Miami, I mean, those were the golden years of the Seminoles, and usually they will kick the hell out of the University of Miami. Sometimes we will win, though. And so I completely realized that it's an essential part of, and I think that will be a fool, a president that will not pay a lot of attention to this. But, I don't think you're going to find a wonderful expert in football that also knows about molecular biology and biomedical research and artificial intelligence. So you have to pick and choose. And frankly, that is going to define FSU for the future. I mean, I know that you know this, but the responsibility that you have on your shoulders is amazing. I mean, you really must love this place because from your decision depends the signature and the face and the phenotype and what people are going to see like FSU in the next 10 years.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you. That leads right up to our final question. It really dovetails very well into my final question. As the FSU president, I believe our next FSU president is going to have just an incredible impact, opportunity as the world is changing, as we're positioned in the top 20, as we're aiming for our goals out into the future. As president, you're going to have a lot to do with how we do on those goals and how we get there and what those goals are. So take a moment and look out 5 years. Imagine 5 years from now, and you're the FSU president today. What does 5 years from now look like to you? What have you accomplished? What still is left to be done? What are the opportunities before us still? And how well have we done in the past 5 years?
yeah, so I like data.
You may use that, by the way, as a way to close your remarks, and
Sure.
Just leverage that into your closing remarks.
It's a wonderful way. But I like data. I like data-driven decision-making. A friend of mine in Utah told me the other day, he said, you know something, listen to what you say, it looks like if it's not measurable, it doesn't exist. And I said, that is exactly the way it works. In this world, you cannot measure, it doesn't exist. So let's talk about numbers. In my first year at Tulane, I increased research by 20%, 19% federal. If you do that year after year, which is not easy, but if you do that, basically 20 plus 20 plus 20, I honestly think that you should bring what today is $250 million roughly of grant funding. You can at least increase it by 50 to 100%, and that brings you into being into the range of the places that you want. The only way is to build the research. And the way to build the research is to recruit some of the best scientists, put them together, give them the tools, and let them work and get out of the way. If you are, like Steve Jobs used to say, it's stupid to hire people and tell them what to do. It's better to hire people that can tell us what to do. And I don't have the time to tell you of the millions of initiatives that I run. One is, for example, within a year, Tulane is going to have an entirely digital grant lifetime processing environment. So from the first word on the grant to the very last moment that gets submitted and after the follow-up is going to be done exclusively digital. So one of the things I will pay attention is not only to bring the right people, put them in the right places, but also make sure that they have an environment that is conducive to increase the volume. And you need to digitalize. And you know what happened a week ago? I got a letter, your people got it too, from the ORI, the Office of Research Integrity. And they were basically telling us that they are no longer going to receive anything that is in paper. It's going to have to be all digital. We are already ready. You need to think ahead. And that is basically what I will make sure that they have. And by the way, that is only one of the elements. We have implemented lab archives, which allows our investigators to basically put digitally all the data into a system. It's great for compliance because you cannot erase anything. And we are launching a new clinical platform because now we're going to start running studies, clinical trials that involve 60 different sites around the country. You cannot do that in paper. You need to basically have a digital format, a digital technology available. All those things, and by the way, when you talk about granting, people make the big mistake thinking that a lot of funding is into basic research. The big bucks are in clinical research. And moving forward, just think that there are probably 60 or 70 different vaccines for COVID being tested as we speak. You need to have the infrastructure to do it. So you get the right people, you give them the right tools, you invest in the right buckets because you cannot pay for everything. The result in my career has always been success. I left everywhere I went. I can tell without any risk of being of anybody saying it's not true. I left a program that was not better, was substantially better than what I found. I will basically spend a lot of time on education and try again to make sure that if a kid comes to FSU, receives state-of-the-art preparation for the future, not for now, for when that kid is going to become the new Sasser and needs to basically know how the business is going to function at that time. I'm going to basically focus on the areas that I do know make a difference in the top ranking institutions. Again, what brought you in the top 20 is not going to take you into the top 10. And it's going to give you a much better chance of getting into the AAU. I'm not going to lie to you. AAU is called by many people the black box. There are rules and regulations, but I know that I have a lot of people that I have great respect for that are there, and I know that I can pick the phone and call them and say, what is going to take? And I'm going to try basically, first and foremost, I profoundly believe that what makes a difference is culture. To establish a culture of achievement, of reaching higher and higher, and excellence, 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 excellence. If you establish that type of culture, you are going to build the field and they will come. I profoundly believe that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate you being here with us today. Thanks for
My privilege.
making the trip.
Truly
Thanks
my
for your interest in Florida State University, and best of luck.
Well, one of my children was here for 2 years, and then he got sick with COVID. I hope that now he's taking a semester off. I hope he's going to be back.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
My privilege, thank you.
15-minute break.